The trade period is done and dusted for another year. Let's talk about how Collingwood did. So, by far, just in general, this might have been one of my favorite trade periods, maybe because I've just followed it more closely than I have over the last few years. But Curnow going to Sydney is absolutely hilarious. You got Petrarca to the Suns, Jamara to the Suns, and the Suns, they'd be premiership favourites at the moment. Warple going to Geelong from Hawthorn. Zach Merritt not getting to Hawthorn. It was just everything was everywhere. Of course, it always comes down to the last day because classic AFL, they love the circus nature of it all, and but it got done, and or most of them got done. Some of them didn't get done, and I do really feel sorry for the players that wanted to go to a club or wanted to go home or something, and they couldn't get it done. One of the ones that comes to mind straight away is Cal Archie, now a two-time premiership player at the Lions, uncontracted. The Lions wouldn't budge from what I was reading anyway. The Lions wouldn't budge. They wouldn't come to the table with what Adelaide were offering. They wanted something else. Adelaide were like, no, this is what we're going to give you, blah, blah, blah. And now Archie has to go through the preseason draft, and very reminiscent of when Luke Ball did that for Collingwood back in 2009 when St Kilda wouldn't budge on a trade either. But that's all neither here nor there. You're here for Collingwood's trade recap, and we had a very quiet trade period compared to other trade periods. Some would say boring and uneventful, but sometimes you have to be boring and uneventful. I guess it wasn't really by plan. Our hands were just tied because we had just no capital to trade out this year. We couldn't even, like, there was no players that wanted to leave us, and besides Brody Marchek, we'll talk about that in a second. But besides Checkers, there was no other sort of players that wanted to leave. Like Sydney gave Carlton, Hayward, and Florent because they're like, we need to push you out, make room in the cap for Curnow, blah, blah, blah. So they get pushed out sort of thing. No one was wanting to go home from the Pies and stuff. So that says a lot about the list and how connected they are and how ready they are to be a team and, go forward and push forward. And I absolutely love that so much. Would I have liked to have added a sort of a ready-made midfielder to help Nick Dacos a little bit? Can we really trust Ned Long all season? Yeah, of course I would have loved to have added Clayton Oliver or Jai Simpkin if the price was right. Only if the price was right, but it wasn't to be.
Leper, could you have put forward a future first-round pick for Jai Simpkin?
No, there was never, and they wouldn't even have accepted that anyway. There was not even anything back that even accept that, even if we could. But yeah, we were happy to work around the fringes of this deal to get the right result. But they wanted the whole kit and caboodle, so we weren't willing to do that.
So I guess we'll talk about our outs first, because it was really only Brody Marchek and a couple of late picks that don't really matter too much in the grand scheme of things. But Checkers was part of the 30-plus brigade. He wanted 2 years and a little bit more money, and Melbourne were offering that. And now, he goes to Melbourne, and there's not really any mids to kick it to him, so that's going to be pretty interesting going forward and seeing how he goes there. Collingwood, look, I think Brody Marchek has been super, super, super serviceable and just a great player, a premiership magpie. And I said all of this in the video that I did about Checkers leaving and stuff. They probably should have offered him 2 years, but I can understand why they didn't. And sometimes you have to let your beloved players go. We were always going to get Jack Bullard in. Charlie West is in the reserves as well. Noah House, I don't know if he's going to get a new contract as of yet. He still hasn't re-signed, so we're not too sure what's going on there. But we do have this young crop of forwards coming through, and they wouldn't be able to develop unless one of those other older forwards gave way. And sometimes, if you want to use an analogy, you can see my plant up there. I'm just trying to see where it is, right there. You can see my plant right there. There was a lot of dead leaves, right? And it was stunting the growth of the new leaves. Took it down. What I had to do was water it, cut off the old dying leaves, and then the new leaves are starting to grow now. So sometimes you have to cut off those ones that just aren't giving you a lot, and they just won't change into new ones for new, younger ones to grow. And that's exactly what we did with Myercheck, and Buller and Weston, and hopefully Howes as well. So coming into the club, we bring in Jack Buller, the young key forward from Sydney, and I think this was a really, really good move. You can hear Justin Lepage talk about him, and he plays the Collingwood way. 199 centimeter forward, stands taller, could be 200 centimeters. So that's a big, big key forward, and taller than anyone we have in that forward line, except, if Mason Cox runs through there. And we haven't had a big key forward like that as well. Competes really well. Competes well on the ground as well. He's not just one of those big forwards that just mark the ball, kick the ball. Competes really well on the ground. Again, would need to get his endurance up a little bit if he is to play second ruck like I think he might be.
Well, obviously he's a tall key forward, and we need them. But he's a Collingwood player. He's a competitive guy, both in the air and on the ground. He pressures well, and I think the fans will really enjoy him. Competitive nature is number one. I think that's really important. He's a good size. He's 199, so that extra bit of height for us as well. A lot of our keys are sort of in the lower 190s, so very different athlete to what we've got currently down there. So provides some second ruck options for us as well. So yeah, he does a lot for us.
Because we do need a second ruck in that team, and I just don't think they're going to put McStay through that again. But again, we'll see what happens when preseason kicks off. So I think that was really good. And the funny thing about this is we offered pick 56 to Sydney for this. I thought it was going to be pick 45, right, that we got. But we offered pick 56 to Sydney. They said no, but then they took our future third rounder, which is absolutely nuts. So Sydney got the raw end of that deal, and I'm happy about it because we've got a good player like Jack Buller coming into the team. We also bring in, like I said, picks 45, 56, 61, and a couple of 2026 future first rounders. So we move up the draft a little bit with that 45 and 56. In that video that I did about the pick swap, I said, pick 45 is probably going to go to Jack Buller, so it won't get used for NGA bids or anything like that. It looks like it will get used for an NGA bid. I thought we did that pick swap because Sydney really wanted something a little bit higher for Buller because they rated him so highly. But they ended up taking a future third. Who would have seen that? So that's really, really good for us.
Yeah, well, this year was always going to be a little bit of a consolidation year for us. We did quite a lot last year, and you can't sort of go into a lot of big deals every season. So yeah, real consolidation year for us. We got the key forward that we wanted, Jack Buller, which is awesome. It's a position of need for us, which is great. He's going to be a terrific addition for us.
So let's talk about the players that didn't come to the Pies. Now, the thing with Simpkin is he wanted to come to Collingwood. Collingwood wanted him. The Kangaroos, and rightfully so. He's their captain. It'll be a bad look for your captain of a club that's won 5 games in, 3 years or however bloody long it is, to go to a top 4 club, a club that just came off a premiership. A preliminary final. They were 1 or 2 first rounds. Collingwood said no. Here's a future first round in 2027 that could be diluted by Tasmania if they come into the club, into the AFL. And here's a future second as well. And of course, they knocked that back. Collingwood never were going to give 2 future first rounders for him. But it would have been, I know there was a lot of talk about Josh Simpkin and how he goes about it and stuff. But if we could have got him on the cheap, not 2 future first, if we could have got him on the cheap, 2027 future first, I don't care. That's going to be the most diluted draft in history. Give that one away. And, that future second for next year, 100%. But it wasn't to be. I would have loved another mid coming into this team, but we're going to have to back our team now. And when you look at it, the team is pretty sound. Yes, would have been nice to have added a couple more players in positions that we need, like maybe another backman. I know Jacob Blight, for the last time, because everyone keeps asking me on comments and DMs and stuff, did list a free agent. We didn't have to trade for him. We don't need to pick him up in the draft. He'll be after the draft, right? So he can come to us for free if Collingwood commit to him and want him at the club. So that's no problem there. But bringing in a mid would have been nice, and bringing in a defender would have been nice if there was one on the table. Hopefully, we pick Jacob Blight up a little bit later. What I am happy about, though, is that we did keep our future first for 2026, our future first for 2027, just in case next year something big happens. Maybe Bailey Humphrey is back on the board. We know Zach Butters and Ben King are free agents. By that time next year, there'll be no more Grundy. No more Grundy paycheck, because this next year is his last year of that paycheck. Because remember, he signed a really, really long contract before we got rid of him. Pendles is off the books. Sidebottom's off the books. Jeremy Howard off the books, you would think. There will be a couple more players off the books with money, and the CBA is going up as well. You could probably offer both of those guys a lot of money to come to Collingwood. And that's probably what they're banking on. And again, I don't really know the rules around it. But if Port Adelaide match our business, say we offer Zach Butters, I don't know, 1.5 a year for 6 years, and Port Adelaide go, yep, we'll match it. You then have to trade for him. So that's probably why we're still keeping our future first. Would you want Butters or Ben King? I would prefer Butters over King. If we could get both, 100% we can get both, or that'd be great. But I would prefer Butters as that mid to help Nick Dacos out for the next 10 years over Ben King. But let's wrap this video up. What do I grade Collingwood's trade period? Oh, C+. I give it a C+. Look, only because we needed a midfielder and we didn't get one. We didn't do anything big. We didn't do anything bad either. Jack Buller is a great get. We couldn't push up early into the first round of the draft. That would have been highly impossible anyway. No real huge players left except for Brody Myercheck. So you probably, yeah, C+. I wouldn't give it a B. There's no way this is a B. Again, because we didn't have any first rounders to use or anything like that. I'm happy with giving this a C+. But let me know your thoughts. What do you grade Collingwood's trade period? Leave your thoughts down below in the comments. The draft is coming up, so there'll be a lot more draft content. It's going to be an interesting off-season. If you have any ideas for videos, let me know what you want to see down below. But until then, like, comment, subscribe, tell your family, tell your friends, tell your pets, and until next time, double shackers. I'll swoop you later.